You talking to?
I'm talking to you.
Because I'm tired. Had a good day, but a tired day. Not tired just until right now. Just a little tired. Oh, Oscar, don't waste your film on me. Please don't do that.
Don't tell me I caught Clifton without a work camp.
You caught me wordless.
Probably big print screens weren't the big thing. So.
Yeah. Probably didn't really pay any attention.
So I probably didn't think anything of it. Oh, you know what? I need to hear him say something about
And it's his desire that we do live in harmony with each other. And one of the things he says is that
Her name?
we come to him to belong to him. When we invite him to come into our lives and to be our Lord and our Savior, that we
Times I told her I was going to be able to make it down there. So when I made it down there, she put in my number. She started. She said, "Oh, we're a little over." She went back in. She said, "Okay." And I said, "What did you do?" She said, "I've done your site-based management budget." I said, "You did?" She said, "Is that what you?" She said, "Isn't that what you come down here for?" I said, "No." I said, "I came for you to show me how to do budget transfer." She said, "Oh, that's easy, Pat." She said, "Don't worry about that. We've done this part." She said, "You have 2 more parts to do." And she went through and she printed out a screen. She went through again. She printed out another screen. She said, "All you have to do now is go back." Now, she said, "This is the amount that they will allow you to have." Mm-hmm. She said, "Which some of this amount will not be enough for what you want." She said, "Now tell them what you want in each category and then justify it." So I said, "Is that?" She said, "Yeah." Then I thought about it. I started looking at the areas. I said, "Well, this doesn't really concern me. It concerns the teachers." So I called the meeting and I told the teachers, I gave them some milestones we wanted to cover. And I told them, I said, "And all you need to do is tell me what you want, the price, and the justification." So I was able to take all their information and put it together, took it back down there. She did it. She helped me again. And to me, that was a blessing because you don't know how weird I was. Yeah. You know, I'm talking about not just my livelihood, the livelihood of 50 adults plus 354 children. Yeah. You know, and I kept thinking, you know, if this fall, this is going to be all on me. And all of that, I said, "Lord, help." And, you know, sometimes we think we have to get down and just really holler out and scream. Sometimes we just have to ask, you know, just ask. And
Especially when you're in front of him all the time, asking is easy. It's just become part of the conversation.
Right.
You know, but the key is being in front of him all the time.
You know what? And then what happens is if you're not in front of him all the time, Satan's going to make you think, you know what? You got a lot of nerve going to God now. Yeah. You know, he just makes you think that. You got a lot of nerve. But see, really, your status didn't change. You just, you know, God was still there. You just, you know, weren't available. Mm-hmm. But then, Satan said, you're going to go pray now when you need him. And, you know, you should be praying all the time. He probably don't know who you are. Mm-hmm. You know?
Right.
Yeah, then you feel like you got to pray a long time to get him to know you. Yeah. You know, again. You know,
remember me?
I could pray a long time. But he, you know, he was always there. You know, but Satan does so many things to
Because
trick
I
us.
try to explain to Marsha sometimes. I say, you know, sometimes when I really want to validate the presence of God, I think about all the stuff that Satan has done to me. That's because, trust me, Satan goes out of his way to let you know that he's real. Sometimes you have to look and find God. I said, but you don't never have to look. I said, Satan. I said, God becomes real as I deal with Satan. That's because, trust me, Satan is real. He shows up unannounced, anytime, all the time, and he's never out of character.
And you know what? If Satan is not messing with you in a certain area, that means he's already got you. You know what I mean? Like you think, well, Satan's not by this because, you know, he's already got you in that area. And it seems like it's smooth sailing because you're not a challenge in that area.
Yeah. But you know, also in asking, you have to ask and then believe that he is the reward of those who diligently seek him. So when we ask, we're not asking in a miss. We're asking because we want an answer. And for me, that was all. You know how my Christmas would have been thinking about a budget. And if it was just me, that's one thing. But I'm talking about the lives of other people.
It's I see at my work now, Doug. Met Doug. Doug. Parents are Christians. We all go to the same church, so we all always pray and stuff. Doug's in trouble more than he's out of trouble after the time, but we always we always have this view where we can always come together and pray, but he's real smart, really smart, and when we have projects we're working on, because like I remember when I hired him, he said I can't do that, and he just says I'll do something for you part time. But as moved on, I mean, I could not have had, because God knew what he was doing. So I know that being in that business is right. I understand that. But I also know that God wanted to be in front of the business. He was behind it. So we got that straight. But, so I'll tell Doug, I said, Doug, I think God has just given me another idea. Now, I kind of say it there. But even when I say it, it's almost like, well, why couldn't I have gotten this from Wharton School of Business? Because people, I don't have, I'll go places and they would say, okay, like at Darton School of Business, University of Virginia. Darton Business School is one of the top business schools in the country, right up there with Harvard and Kellogg. Whatever I say at Darton, they embrace whatever I say, like it just dropped out of whatever. And these doctors there, they listen, they tell me, it's kind of like God give me something that seems simple to me. By the time I listen to them, it's verifying some theory that somebody has proposed that never had a practical way of implementing.
Right.
So anyway, to make a long story short, so we were getting ready to do this workshop for this one company, and we were talking about building Ray in the workplace, respect, affirmation, and inclusion, and how important it was to fully engage minds. So I knew as the Lord just simple. It wasn't like a thunderbolt. It just said, okay, this is what you can do is before you start, you talk about a fully engaged mind, get people excited about it. But then you talk about barriers, because he's given me a whole way to approach diversity that's different than most people. He said, you give them 3 pieces of paper, strips, and ask each person to write down 3 barriers that would keep them that would keep their minds from being fully engaged. He said, I want you to have a clear jar with a top on it. And I want you to walk them, have it, when they do it, I don't want you to read one barrier. That's their business, what their barriers are. He said, you have them put in a jar and put the top on it. And this jar of all these multicolored barriers is there. So as I get ready to start the workshop, that's okay. The purpose of this workshop is to build against these barriers. I said, the barriers were brought here by all of us. And we're going to be the one that can empty this jar. And there are 3 things we can do that will help us. We can bring respect into the workplace. We can affirm those with whom we work. And we can have a personality that is inclusive. I said, now, we're going to talk about how to make those 3 things happen. I said, and over time, it will cause this jar to become empty. And that's what the Lord said. And it's worked. I mean, people, there's something about, and the Lord said, and I didn't want to hear this. The Lord said they're releasing. Now, but I can't say that to these people at Capital One. Gee, you're releasing. But he said, when you have them to write down what their deal is, and you don't discuss it, but every once in a while you go back to the jar, and you say, okay, why is nurturing attitude important? Why? Because there's something in this jar that ain't going to leave this jar unless you're willing to be unselfish, unless you're willing to share your time, unless you're willing to be supportive of others. I said, if you're willing to do these 3 things, it can move maybe 3 or 4, a handful of this stuff can come out of this jar, simply by being willing to do that.
And they are, again, respect, affirmation,
and inclusion. That's what I'm going to talk about, the principles. Doug made me sit down. He said, you haven't done your outline yet. I said, I know that. So we can't leave till you do your outline. So that's when I was in his office. He was going through the outline for those 2 groups I have to do in St. Louis. But all of that stuff, the Lord gave. So I know that he wants me doing that. But the problem was, if he wanted this house to be a prayer house, that's what he wanted. And that's where I was off base. If he wanted me and Barbara to be telling people, you can come here and pray. We'll pray with you. I wasn't willing to do that. Yeah, I would if you pushed me. But I wasn't willing to do that like, you know, hey, if I can just get to Clifton Barbers, we can go to God about this. I wasn't willing to get it to that point.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So I'm not quite sure what God wants to do, other than the fact that I'm telling him, I don't care anymore. Do whatever you want.
I like this confirms some things that I was thinking. You know, at all of our staff meetings, we always have affirmations. We always start with an affirmation, end with affirmation. But the last one, I usually give the affirmations. But at the last one, the Lord impressed upon me to have everybody at their particular tables affirm each other. And so they all had to affirm each other. And I gave them, I modeled it for them. I like it when you did. I really appreciate it when you did, you know, thus and so. And we talk about a mutual respect, but we don't always understand and give that. You know, we fall into a realm of selfishness when we think about respect. It's just what I want. You know? But to be able to respect and to be able to affirm an individual and then be able to include them.
Because the Lord said, if sometimes you can respect a person at work, and you can respect them from 8 to 5. You can even affirm a person. But if you really want to build that relationship that is total and unique and good, you have to also include the person.
Right.
And that's where most people fall down.
In leadership,
they do not want the inclusion part. I mean, they can handle the respect, they can handle the affirmations to some extent, but the inclusion means, it couldn't mean breaking bread together. It could mean doing things together. It could mean working together. It's more, it's kind of like the life of respect and affirmation. And inclusion is more, it's the hands-on where where the rubber hits the road. And that's why a lot of programs fall, is because people try to make it work within an 8 to 5, and you can't really do it. It's your life.
And see, that's exactly so true, because that's why they won't get rid of the sales department. You know, like department, because my job is not, you know, like so finely defined. But a lot of what I do is I go, you know, like I'm available, you know, and I try to, you know, be there for whatever they need. But the biggest part of my job is to take people out in the evening, you know, and go to hockey games and baseball games and buy them dinner and, you know, go to shows and do things like that. And sometimes I like doing that kind of stuff, but sometimes I'm thinking, you know what, I want my own life. I don't really, you know, because really, to really have that, what they want you to have with your clients, you have to share. Yeah, I have to tell them things about, you know, like I have to share. And I don't like to share my personal business with them. And it's not like, you know, like it has to be like anything that's private, you know, just tell them about my kids or, you know, things that we have in common. I don't like to do that, you know, but, well, like to everybody, you know what I'm saying? Like to just, you know, but I can see how that is part of it. That I you know, to have that, you know, you get the respect, you have to have that inclusion part.
So we call it RAY. So we designed this whole program called Building RAY in the Workplace. Respect, affirmation, and inclusion. And we now have an online, and this is really interesting. This is a guy, this young doctor. I never met him, and he saw my name in the paper, called me up, and said, I just think we should know each other. And I think he's just kind of become a Christian to some extent. And he's really bright statistician type. And so we designed an online survey that you can measure the level of respect, affirmation, and inclusion that exists based on the question and the qualitative and quantitative data that comes back. I look at that stuff and I think, I can't believe that I'm doing stuff like this, but I realized that, that it's all the Lord, and I realized that God would do even more. But on the other side of it, I still go back to those times when you're walking as close to God as you possibly can. There'll always be someone who's reaching out for Jesus. And many of those times I have like shut the door. Because I remember when I was in San Antonio and I was speaking, and this one guy, he may have been just a little off base. He was like, he said, boy, you must be a Christian. Now, I should have been jumping up and down. I said, yeah. But I was saying, well, why you ask? and then he said, well, and then I think he kind of felt bad then because this was was doing it for Prentice Hall. And he said, well, as you were talking, he said, it just sounds so much like faith and all of that. And I said, God, what are you doing to me? That wasn't with the whole group. That was just 2 people.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? But it's kind of like I was ashamed to say God was at God, it wasn't like the 100 people it wasn't like the 100 people said, Mr. Taulbert, is that your faith? It wasn't like, everybody was gone. It was just 2 people. Wouldn't nobody have heard us talk but the chairs? But to have held the conversation would have gotten in the way of my professionalism. So I tried to put Jesus on wherever I could to put him, in a paper bag with a loose string on it or something. Because he really wasn't. I mean, he wasn't an inner.
Honest.
Huh?
I said, at least you're honest.
Yeah, I have no choice now.
Well,
Beth.
but that helps other people. It's
I
helping
have
us,
I have no choice. No choice. Even when I wrote Marvin, Marvin, Marvin Merkowitz, he just thinks he is the intellectual guru. And he cannot understand why people respond so well because he's looking for research. Something to prove why I have said what I've said. Well, and it's hard to tell him that you spoke in tongues and you interpreted. It ain't gonna work. I said it. It's just not gonna fly. So.
Now, when you talk about inclusion, do you mean how do you mean inclusion?
Well, I have a definition. We have defined all of these, and I don't want to guess what that definition. I can think of it right now. But there is a definition that we have.
Well, you don't have to have a definition. Just tell me, what do you mean by it?
Well, that is the definition. What I mean,
for an example, inclusion would be.
Inclusion.
You don't have to tell me the definition. Like, how would I include somebody?
You're making me work. Now, I can't think. I'll email it to you.
We think. Let me see if I can jog your memory on some things. We speak of inclusion. We think we are speaking about including everyone into whatever it is you're doing, into leaving no one out.
Well, he was saying something about 8 to 5, and then inclusion is like.
Did you mean bringing the
Well, he mentioned like breaking bread.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what I'm saying.
That's taken.
Okay, what I'm saying is that a fully engaged mind. I think I know what you're asking. In the workplace, even though we like to try to totally keep things separate, the most successful working teams and most successful parties that really get things done, there is a relationship between those people that extend beyond the prescribed time.
Okay.
There's a relationship that either it's going to be at a bar, at a ball game, going to be doing some stuff together.
Golf club.
Golfing. You're going to be creating a relationship that you can draw upon. And the thing of inclusion is to move beyond
what's comfortable for you.
Yeah, it's a moving beyond. Now, but there, if I could give you my official definition, you say, oh, you get it, because I think
that's kind of like what I was saying. Like how they expect us to perform.
Because they understand when they understand that
is higher than other products.
And there are people selling the same product.
And there's a lot of people selling the same product. So we've got to have a relationship. And a lot of times they'll tell me that, like we need to get something done. They say, now you need to use your relationship to get this done, because we're higher than everybody else on this one. We can't come up with a whole lot of benefits why they need to do this. So now I have to rely on my relationship. And a lot of times I can rely on my relationship to get things done, but you have to work at that relationship, to make it where you can get it done.
And it goes a little bit beyond just what I call official camaraderie. It puts you, well, just like with Linda McKay. I mean, that's professional, but it's also extend beyond that to include us. It goes on, and that's. But the whole thing of the Ray deal was, and this is what the Lord told me, which I cannot say to anybody else, but the diversity program, and they're falling on hard times. Because diversity basically is from the root word is to divide. It's not to build together. Right. Anyway, he said, I want you to design a program that speaks of light, that speaks of that enlightens people's minds. So it said, building Ray in the workplace. He said the whole idea of Ray, it explodes within a person's mind, light, shafts of light, building rays, the rays of sunlight. Respect, affirmation, inclusion are the sources for this light. And he said, if you want to build an environment where all minds are fully engaged, then there are three things that you have to do for people's minds to become fully engaged. Because if you don't respect me, it's going to be pretty hard for me to give you 100%. Oh, yeah. If you don't affirm me, it's going to be pretty hard for me to give you 100%. And if you don't include me in anything, you are not getting 100%. So if you're not getting 100%, you're getting some work out of me to justify the check that I get. But you're not really getting what I call the workplace competitive advantage. That competitive advantage lives within that little piece of us ourselves that we hold for people with whom we've built relationships. And so that's all the program on that program is designed to look at barriers that would keep you from having a fully engaged mind.
So what do people put down as barriers?
Oh, if I had brought one of those reports, I could have shown you. You'd be amazed. We divide them into about, and believe it or not, Marshall gets on my nerves, but he does a good job. He does all the grunt work for that stuff. He takes them, he never does anything without complaining. But he does it, and he does it right. But he's sitting at the computer. Why am I not doing this? But it's all he always does it, and because I don't want to do it. You suddenly have 300 and 400 sheets of paper. It's not. It's just grunt work. You have to divide all this stuff. You have to put it into the computer. Then you have to go through it. And I said, okay, Marsha, I'm not going to sit here and do categories. You better figure out. I said, I don't want but 10 categories. You better figure out how to label these things in categories. I'm paying you. Do it. So he goes moaning and groaning and fussing. And he kept finding, well, you like these? I said, well, 4 of them are good. I said, these other 6 ain't going to work. So he go back and finally gets it right. And once he gets it right, a template is done. So you never have to do that again. Everything else will fall into those. And see, there are some barriers that happen outside of the workplace that keep a person mindfully fully engaged. Well, if it's outside the workplace, a supervisor may not have any control over that. Home life and stuff like that. There are some barriers that happen within the workplace over which the supervisor can manage against. But if you know what those are, but it also, once you get that type of management report, it can help you look at when you're hiring. Because you can know some things be asked for. Do you have, how are you in this area? Because if half your people say it's a barrier for them, there's no sense in hiring somebody else that's to be a barrier. You don't want to add one more thing to the deal. So it really becomes a very good management report. And we haven't divided, I think we finally got them into 6 categories. And then we just go out and label them what they are, and then you write a report, what you suggest. Because I don't do graphs on those. And we do the one called unselfish acts. Is what do you want? Like if I was talking to a teacher, what are the 3 things you want from your principal that you like to see your principal do on a daily basis? What 3 things would you like to see from your superintendent? What 3 things would you like to see from parents? What 3 things would you like to see from other teachers? in order to build the type of work environment that you want. And people are pretty honest about what they want from other people. But by asking it that way, someone is also saying what they want from them. So you get almost an unbiased, really, and that's what we do, really great graphs. And I'm going to be able to do a book on this eventually, because from Ford to nearly every company all across the country, we've done this. But the graph that's the highest percentage is modeled away, which goes back to short version of it. Whatever you do what you say you're going to do. And if workplaces could, if a teacher did, if the principal did what they say was going to do, it's going to make life easier for the teachers. If the superintendent did what he said he was going to do, it's going to make life easier for the principal. Same as in business. Most people talk and do not do what they say they're going to do. And that's where the thing breaks down. I mean, no matter what company we've gone to, that always comes up at the highest percentage. Model the values. Do what you say you're going to do. And that goes right back to the Lord.
And like I said, any of those models that work, any of them, it's always Bible-based.
Right back to
it. Always Bible-based. And a lot of times I'll listen to speakers and listen to, whatever they're talking about. The first thing I'm thinking is the Bible. As they're talking, I'm thinking this is just right in line with the Bible. Even though they're not talking about the Bible at all, they have some system.
It's plugged up.
It's plugged up.
Because he has his new number on there. Well, when I dial it, it gives me a number.
What is it doing now? Why is it doing
It
that?
sounds like it just spin it around, like buzzing on the table.
But Cliff, I'll tell you, given those three, the one I think the leaders have the most problem with is inclusion. Because respect, okay, they know they have to give that. That's almost a given. Affirmation, that's more or less, if I tell you you're doing a good job, you'll continue to do. You'll continue to do a good job. You'll strive to do even better. But inclusion, because when you include someone, like if you're talking leadership, talking to principals, we have to include everyone. The ones who think the way we do, those who do not, have to include everyone. And some people still make decisions based on what it is they want. They can't look at the whole picture.
That's why once we determine Ray, that's where you go through the workshop. Because what I'm saying is that the 8 habits of the heart become the how-to. And once you go through all of those, and the activities are pretty convincing, it gives you the, when I went to the medical deal today to deliver those things to Mr. Goodman, it was, that was for their board of directors. But we also asked 3 other questions as we get through each habit. So in order to be a Ray in your office, in your place, now that you have looked at nurturing attitude, now you really understand what it is. How can you take this learning and create a 21st century principle? What will you personally start doing? What will you stop doing? And what will you continue to do that's positive, that builds it? And you go through each of the habits like that. Then you end up with another whole document of start, stop, and continue. Because you have to get people to the point that is almost becoming an inverted pyramid. You have to get people to the point of what you're going to person do. It goes back to the Lord. What am I going to do? At the end of the day, God, collectively we're a group that come before the Lord. But we can come before the Lord collectively as a result of coming to him individually. And if you want to build something, you want to have a collective look, but it's going to be individually done. So the person still has to be challenged individually. What will I start? What will I stop? What will I continue? And you have to, and that becomes the challenging part. That becomes the call to action. What will I start? What will I stop? And they have to be specific. We don't let them be what I call giving amorphous answers, like I will be a good teacher. No. What will I actually stop doing? And this one report, I mean, that we got from Capital One that we did, I mean, some of those stuff that people say was classic. I mean, they were telling the truth. What they were going to stop doing, what they were going to start doing.
Like, for instance.
Like for, you got a whole, I guess, mixed group of people, male, females, and Hispanics, whites, blacks, Italians, whatever. And, a person, I would stop pretending that I'm busy when I know I should be helping someone else. And that may sound trite, but that's not trite if you got 50 people pretending. That ain't trite at all. And someone needs their help. But to get them to the point that they were willing to honestly, now they didn't put their names on it, obviously, but they were willing as a group to honestly say, this is what I would stop doing. This is what I would start doing. And, starting like, I would not, I will start leaving home early enough to be at work on time. I mean, it's like 4 pages. I just hadn't looked at it for a while. Because once they get it done, all I do then is go by the charts to do the management.